Today, I'm going to be showing you how to make modern trance synth, HEARSTRING, Narcissist style. You already know what it is. To go along with this video, I've just dropped a new sample pack, Definitive Trance Synths. The link's at the top of the description on my website. It's an extremely great value. What you get is you get these 5 kits, all with all the individual layers, plus MIDI files, plus the Ableton files for all of these. They have everything you need. All the trance synths you need, basically every layer. All you gotta do is just add drums and you can build your own track. You can learn from these, you can take them apart. You can even just use it to make a track if you want. Links at the top of the description. Don't miss out while it's available, guys. This is a great library you can get to make a sick trance track. You know, not a lot of people are making these right now, so you can get a leg up on the competition by grabbing this template while it's still available. Thanks for the support, everybody. And let's get started. Alright, so we're at 150 BPM, and when you're writing these synths, I honestly like to start with the bass line because the bass line is going to define the chord progression, right? And once you have that, you can do all this other cool stuff around it. But you have to have those chords really clearly defined. So what we're doing here, so we're in C major, right? And we're starting with C major. We're going up to the major third. Then we're going up to the 5th, which is G. And then back down to the 9th, which is going to walk us back down. So it's like, see how it kind of like resolves there? You want to do that with your last chord. Like, we can go up high and we can jump, right? But then notice you got to come back down and bring it back home, right? And if you do that, it's going to keep the progression a lot more sort of grounded, right? But yeah, so once you define that chord progression, you'll notice also the notes are like a bit staccato. They're not full 8th notes. For the actual bass sound, it's very simple. I think you just have to have something that can create a really fat saw wave and a square wave. That's what I like to do. You can see we're layering together a saw and a square here, plus really like a square wave in the sub, because that's what the sub oscillator is once you open up that tone knob. So you're basically just creating this super fat bass wave. There's also even some unison on here, but we're converting it to mono in the low end, so it's not a problem. And then you use a filter to kind of dial it back and then make it punchy, because the envelope on the filter is going to make this like punch a lot more than when there was no filter, right? But it's all about creating that really fat sound and kind of like dialing it back, like subtractive synthesis, right? And another thing you could do too is just a little bit of cutting out the low end. So you cut out maybe like up to there, because there's a lot of frequencies down there. We'll put that before the utility, actually. There's a lot of low frequencies down there that can mess up the headroom in your track later when you're mastering. From there, I like to go and write the lead line, because this is kind of like, you know, the hook. So the name of the game here is call and response. And also, if you want to really have a great lead, try to play kind of like with the relative minor. What I mean by that is, okay, so if you make a chord, right? Like let's say we have C major. So that would be C major, like the first 2 notes. Now if you add this down here, that's A minor, right? So see how you can build like a minor chord with 2 of those voices? So that would be the relative minor, right? So what we're really doing here is kind of playing it like we're in an A minor against the major progression. And that's going to create contrast, and it's also going to make it a bit more like melancholic and not just like super happy C major, right? Like, you know, dance music still, you want it to be kind of minor feeling. So you're using this major scale but making it feel minor. For example, like the first bass note is C, and then the lead's playing B, which is like 1 note under from that. Like it's a very like, see what I mean? And so if this would be like A minor, you're doing like that 3rd root or 9th root 3rd. See what I'm saying? And the other thing with the lead too is, you know, those two voices, how they're so close, and you get such a nice little reaction between that and then the bass line changing. Right, just keeping those simple voices. There's really not a whole lot of voices in here. The other thing is the rhythm, right? I think the key with trance is it's the intersection between melody and rhythm. So you don't want your lead to just be like dun dun dun, you know. Give it kind of some bounce like this. And some 16th notes. Now, for the actual sound on this one, the goal here is kind of like, you know, creating something that isn't just going to be that same old boring saw and square wave lead. Like, when I hear a lot of these modern trance tracks, I think these people are exploring where can we take this that isn't just that same, like, saw, super saw lead that we've all heard a million times. So, the way we're doing that here is we got this resonant 2 wavetable and then this Ireland or whatever. If I turn off all the effects, it's going to sound like this. Right, and we also got a low pass filter, and then we have an envelope on the oscillator position plus on the filter frequency. Noise unison, if I turn that off. Right, it's a very like kind of wonky sounding synth. Bit of reverb, and then a high pass. You'll notice there's not that much processing because really you want to try to create synths that just sound good coming out of the synth, and you don't need to do like 10 layers of plugins. Like, you might think, oh, the more effects, the more detailed the sound is and the more work you put into it, but it's not about the work you put into it, it's about what sounds good. So from there, I like to add some kind of like a pad. So this sounds crazy on its own. This is definitely a case where it's a pad and it's playing its own chord progression, right? Like if you look at this, it's a C major still, but I put the 5th down an octave. And then we got like these chords. Right, and those aren't even following any particular chord shapes. They're kind of just playing notes in this scale. That's the key, is you can create this as long as you follow the scale and just keep it within that same C major scale or the A minor like we were talking about. You can create a pad where it's a different chord progression from the main one, but it's going to accentuate that main chord progression when you play them together. Right, and it's all going to work together really well, plus those top notes moving around. For the sound on this one, we're using just one saw wave with a ton of unison, just a nice classic super saw, but again, still doing something to make it a little bit different. We're turning this dry wet on the reverb up to 80%, so it's very wet. That adds some texture, and it also pushes it kind of to the background. See, when I turn that off, it's very much in your face again. But this just pushes it to the background, keeps it kind of like where it should be in the mix, right? Other than that, just a little bit of a high pass filter. And then the last thing you can add is like this art. Which I think is the last magic thing to really tie it all together. And this is going to give you more arrangement that you can do too, because now you can have like one part where it's just these, one part where it's just these, you know, and then bring them together as well. And you can get a lot out of that arrangement wise. Now, for this ARP, again, this is another case of like, we just follow notes inside of the scale. And just like what I was saying with the lead, like notice how this starts on B, but the bass line's playing C. So it's like a major 7 sort of feel. Now, for the sound on this one, I used analog because there's some cool stuff we can do in analog that you can't do in anything else. So what we got here is we've got a square wave and a sine wave. The square wave is an octave down, but see how the sine wave just has like its own pitch envelope on there? So this is a cool trick you can do with just analog. If I turn that off, see, it's a lot more flat. What happens now is one of the oscillators is bending up to the note that the other oscillator is already at. So you get a very cool sort of thing, right? These are also a bit detuned. We got these going into a bandpass filter with a little envelope and then key tracking as well. So that's why the high notes are louder and the low notes are a little quieter. We got some vibrato, some unison, and also this glide. If I turn that off, it's very different, right? This is a big part of this sound. Is that the way it's like bending between the notes. You just have to turn that on and make sure you set the voices to mono to get that to work. We get some chorus because analog doesn't really have any stereo width on it. A bit of echo on ping pong to widen it a little more. A bit of reverb and just a high pass. And there you go. So that's how you make these modern trance synths that everybody's making right now. Thank you so much for the support, everybody. Make sure to like this video as well as subscribe. And let me know what you think of this video in the comments. Like I said in the beginning, make sure to grab Definitive Trance Synths Volume 1. Link is at the top of the description. Again, you get all 5 of these sick trance kits. All the individual layers, the Ableton files, the MIDI files, everything you need. Just add drums to make a sick modern trance track. Get a leg up. This is going to help you take your tracks to the next level instantly. You're going to make better tracks today if you grab this. I promise that's what it's about. I just want to give back and give you guys these templates so that we can all make the best tracks of our lives. Thanks for the support, everybody, and I'll see you tomorrow with another video.